Seattle Connected, the show that connects you, the viewers, with entrepreneurs, business people, movers and shakers in our community, letting you know who they are before they become household names, which we know they soon will be. Today's guest is a very important person. All of my guests are important. That's why I have the best show. But my guest today is going to talk about something very near and dear to her heart. And she's going to enlighten all of us on, well, I'll let her explain it. But she is a warrior. She is standing tall, brushing her shoulders off. You know, she's been wounded, but she hasn't been broken. She's here to be a source of inspiration for all of us and letting us know that, you know, the battle's never over. So please welcome my guest, Kawanna.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
How was the intro?
Excellent.
All right. I asked my guest that.
You did a great job.
Well, thank you.
Made me sound really good.
Yes. Oh, hey, man, come on. You know, you got to treat your guests, you know, right when they come into your home.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you for being here. And people at home, if you didn't catch on the other episode, we're at a new location for today. Shout out to my man Blake and his endeavors. He's moving on up NAST podcast studios. So if you guys are looking for a place to use, you know, hit him up. Very professional. He has a ton of years and episodes under his belt. He's done the majority of my episodes, so shout out to him. And yeah, man. But back to you, Miss Kawanna.
Yes.
Miss Kawanna, are you how about to say naturally? Are you born and raised in Seattle?
Yes and no.
What? Yes and no.
I'm claiming myself as a Washingtonian. My family and I have been here almost 40 years. So we moved here in the 80s from Mississippi to be a part of a local ministry. And yeah, this is home now. So
yes.
Wherever I go, I'm like, I'm from Washington.
Yes, you
Unless
are.
I'm in Mississippi. Of course, I got to represent my
Yeah, we don't want any
too.
problems.
Yeah, no problems.
Yeah.
So.
How often do you get to go back home?
Well, pre-pandemic, we used to go down every year for a family reunion or, you know, just to get away. So.
Every year?
Every year.
You're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
No, you're not. Because
Why?
then you're putting too much pressure on yourself. So then that one time you can't go, oh, she didn't come.
That's
Why
true.
ain't you? So
True.
next time you should start like trying to balance it out like every other year.
Okay.
And then if you come, you know, 2-3 years in a row, it's just a treat for them.
That's true.
But they're
Okay.
not like, oh, she out in
good.
Washington.
Yeah, she's too good for us. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want those
They
problems.
already think we talk proper out here on Pacific Northwest. So
You know what's crazy? When I went to New York for the first time, I was in a Rite Aid. I was getting like a deodorant or something. And this one girl, I think I was asking her, this clerk, you know, what aisle to go down to. And then she said, she was talking about I talk funny. You know, it was funny. And she had this heavy, you know, Bronx accent, which I thought was so dope. I was like, okay. But she was saying that I talk funny. And I was like, do I?
Do I talk funny?
But, you know, yeah, shout out to her. She was cool. But let's jump right into it, Kawanna. So you have an amazing story, and I'll just tell the people at home, you were diagnosed with lupus.
Yes.
And for those who might not know, what exactly is lupus?
So the best way to describe lupus is for a normal immune system, you know, our immune systems are built to fight off infections and sickness and that sort of thing. Well, people with lupus, our bodies can't determine what's good and bad, and so it fights off everything, including itself. So it begins to attack itself, causing fatigue, muscle and joint ache. It can affect your liver, your heart, your brain, really any organ. So, yeah.
When did you find out that you had lupus?
Honestly, I went years being misdiagnosed, and I hear that from a lot of different people, is that it takes years to be properly diagnosed. Okay. And so I can actually remember being a young kid and having the fatigue and the muscle and joint pain. I actually was never able to participate in any sports and school activities that was, physical activities, because I would always have pains with my legs. Yeah. And so I think by the time I was a teenager, they had diagnosed me with some form of arthritis. And so it wasn't until it was actually a couple months before my 30th birthday where I was finally diagnosed. But in my 20s, I would go in and out of the hospital and would have these episodes that they just couldn't explain. So literally went most of my life being misdiagnosed until that moment where I literally woke up one day. I couldn't move. My husband at the time had to help me get dressed, had to help me do my hair, brush my teeth, literally.
Everything.
And went into the hospital. They ran tests, and that's when I received the positive diagnosis.
Do you remember what they told you it was all those years when they didn't catch it?
Yeah, they just kept saying it was some form of arthritis. That's what I was told for many years. And they would run blood work. But knowing what I know today about lupus, it is one of those tricky illnesses that's hard to properly diagnose. And so you really have to be having what they call a flare and an active flare in order to be properly diagnosed. So I'm assuming all those times I went in, I wasn't having a flare bad enough to where they could get a positive diagnosis. So, Yep.
So when you were diagnosed with lupus, what was your initial thought? Were you thinking, this is something I kind of sensed for years? Or were you thinking, why me? Or how did this... because I think a lot of times when things happen to us, we generally think this can't be, maybe they're wrong,
right.
Unless it's, you won $1 million.
Right.
Or, if it was something that I did, my diet or what have you.
Yeah. What
was your first initial thought? And
I think it was a little bit of both, the why me and... Well, let me back up. So it does run in my family, and it can be genetic with certain people. So in my case, it runs on my father's side of the family, and I've had 2 aunts now to pass away from lupus. So, of course, my initial reaction was, being scared and fearful that, I have this disease that I've had family members pass away from. And so my first instinct was, I'm scared. But it was also bittersweet because I had gone all these years in pain, going in and out of the hospital, getting blood work done, and them, never being able to really tell me what's wrong. So on the other hand, I was happy to finally have some sort of diagnosis and being able to, start treatment and move forward.
Yeah. Did you know that your father's side had a history of lupus before you were diagnosed?
Yes, I did, but I think it was just one of those things where we knew it existed, but nobody really knew the full extent of it. And so I think for me, once I was diagnosed, it was more like, okay, let me educate everybody and let my family know first, this is what it entails, this is what it looks like. But prior to that, it was just kind of like, oh yeah, Auntie so-and-so has that. But, nothing really detailed about it.
Yeah. So how was it when you started your treatment? Was it more intense than you thought it would be? Were you you knew what to expect, but not to what magnitude? Were you scared? What was that like?
Absolutely. It was dreadful, really. I think because initially, and probably most patients have the same story. It's a matter of, getting on the medication, finding out what works for you, see how your body reacts to these different medications. I believe when I initially was diagnosed, I was up to probably about 15 different medications that I was on just to try to balance it out. And so obviously your body's going to react to, all these different foreign substance in there, along with trying to fight off this illness as well. So it was tough. I gained a lot of weight. I lost a lot of weight. It would just really fluctuate depending on, the way my body was reacting at that moment. So it was a tough, I would say, the first year of, getting adjusted to it.
Yeah, good. I'm glad. I assume that you're not at 15 medications right now.
No, sir. Thank God.
Thank God.
Yes.
God is good.
Absolutely.
How important was it for you to not only educate yourself, but educate others and different areas of support as far as organizations that you might have worked with, or was there any organizations that you worked with as far as lupus goes?
Absolutely. I think to answer your first question, it was important to me because, like I said, I did have other family members who were affected by it, but because of the fact that no one really knew the extent of it for me. And it did, and I won't say I, initially jumped to being an activist and, advocating and, bringing awareness to the community about it. I think it took a year for me to adjust my own self physically and spiritually. And, I went through all the why me's that you mentioned and, having these pity parties. I am a woman of faith. And so obviously, spiritually, I had to regroup and, come to grips with everything. And so that second year, I had a coworker of mine brought a flyer about a local lupus walk that was happening. And, she really encouraged me to be a part. Shout out to Jeanette James, who really encouraged me. And she saw something in me that I obviously didn't see in myself and was just like, I really think you need to be a part of this. And so that's really how I started just bringing awareness into the community after I did that walk and saw the need for it, especially in our community. It is a disease that predominantly affects women of color. And so that was really my passion to get it out to the community and let people know, like, hey, this is a disease that's really affecting African Americans, predominantly women of color. It does affect men and children as well, but a smaller percentage. And so from that moment, I started being a part of the Lupus Foundation of America. They have a local walk every year, and then also the Lupus Research Alliance. And they have been two organizations that I've been actively a part of for the last, actually 17 years this month, that I've been active and just really sharing my story to the community and just getting other people involved. We were having local support groups. I started to connect with other survivors, and we would have these quarterly support groups just as a way to come together and just share coping strategies and sharing stories about medications and what works, what doesn't work. Just having it. I've found that it's helpful to have someone that can really relate, and just kind of network that way. And to this day, although, the organization is not in existence anymore, but I still have built those relationships with women that, and men. We do have some men that were a part of the Sisters Against Lupus as well. But just having that network and that support is definitely something that makes a big difference.
Yeah. I was reading something earlier about how many people are affected by lupus.
Well, I don't know what the current numbers, but it used to be, that was part of our slogan, that over 1.4 million people have lupus, but I'm sure the numbers are a lot more than that now. Yeah,
and I think there's even more due to some people who, such as yourself, who were misdiagnosed, or they might have symptoms and they ignore it because I think a lot of time in our community, we have our own reservations about doctors,
Yes.
medicine, treatment, and some of us are just scared
Right.
because we don't want to go and hear something that we
Yep.
don't want to hear. So it's like, I'll just avoid it.
Yep.
I know that there's most likely someone in everyone's family or friends that, has lupus. They might not even know. So I think that that's very special. You're able to connect with people and have a sort of a sisterhood with those who have gone through what you've gone through, and you guys can kind of lean on each other for support. And like you were saying, it's good when you have someone who's been through what you've been through.
Right.
That softens the blow a little bit, I
Yep.
guess.
Yep.
I can assume.
Absolutely.
And you said you stay in touch with most of those people.
Yes,
Yeah, a lot of them.
Well, a good portion of them.
Yeah.
May is Lupus Awareness Month, so usually every May there's either a walk or some kind of event, and so due to the pandemic the last few years there hasn't been anything. So this past May I got together with about 5 or 6 of them and just went to dinner, did a little catch up, and just definitely on social media I'm in touch with a lot of them as well. So
Yeah. What perspective would you say lupus has put in front of you as far as like valuing life?
oh gosh, I think just I think in general we take a lot of things for granted, right? Just being able to get up and go to work and take care of my child. I have a 19-year-old daughter who has been with me throughout the entire process, really. Yeah, because it was 17 years ago. And so I think for me, every day is a blessing. There are people that have more extreme cases of lupus, and so just being able to do the day-to-day stuff for me is a blessing within itself. So I think it definitely opened my eyes to how bad things could be, and even on my worst days, I try to still keep moving and just stay motivated and try to rest when I need to, obviously, and try not to overdo it, but just try to live a life that's as normal as possible, if there's a such thing.
Yeah. Now, are there stages of lupus or levels, like, kind of like diabetes? Some are more serious than others, or, they're all serious, but is there, or is it all kind of under the same umbrella? Or?
I wouldn't necessarily say stages, but it definitely affects people in a different way.
Okay.
And I think it, that's probably one of the misconceptions too, is that, people will look at you and think that there's nothing wrong, but really, I have people that have had, kidney transplants or, use oxygen machines because they can't, their lungs aren't functioning to its full capacity. So there is different levels and people that are affected in different ways. People are also affected by the sunlight. So, for instance, for me, just being in direct sun sometimes affects me. And for me, it's more feeling dizzy or nauseous and that sort of thing. But there's people who literally have to wear layers when they go out because they start to get blisters and different things on their skin. Wow. So, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. How important do you think it is to know your family history as far as, finding out whether it's lupus or anything else?
Absolutely. It's definitely important. And I think you kind of touched on this earlier. Within our culture, a lot of us don't really know. And that's why I said it can be hereditary. And then people that I meet, sometimes they'll reach out and, that's one of the questions that I ask. Well, is there anybody in your family? Just kind of giving a way to gauge and to kind of direct them on how to move forward. But it's definitely important. And I don't think we talk about our health enough within our families. And, who knows down the line, God forbid, my child or her children may have some of the symptoms. But it's important to talk about it so you know that it exists.
Yeah. What's one of the misconceptions that people tend to have about lupus, or you might have heard from people?
I think one of the main ones is that it's not a serious illness. You know, people don't put it up there with, you know, you mentioned diabetes or cancer or one of the more serious ones, but it actually is. And there are people that, you know, die from lupus. And so, yeah, I think that's one of the main ones, is that people don't classify it, and it doesn't get enough, what's the word I'm looking for? There's just not enough awareness out there about it. Yeah. And thankfully, you know, we have people like Nick Cannon and Tony Braxton, Lady Gaga, and different celebrities who have kind of, you know, been a lot more vocal and being advocates and talking about it more. Selena Gomez is also a huge advocate with the Lupus Foundation of America. So I would say within the last 10 years, it's definitely gotten more notice, but yeah. And I definitely thank the Seattle Tacoma community, because they've been very receptive and very supportive to me over the last 15 years. So,
yeah. What would you recommend that someone does if they feel like, I think I might have lupus, or maybe I'm just experiencing some of the symptoms? Would you recommend that they, I guess, continue to have or start to have regular visits with their primary care provider? Or
absolutely. And I would say, well, I would give anybody this advice to be your own advocate for your health and be vocal. And when you're having these type of pains or whatever, be consistent, be persistent, and don't stop until they, you know, give you some kind of answer. And then if specifically, if you think it's lupus, I would say to, you know, Google your local lupus support groups or a lupus foundation, or get in touch with me. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and I'd be happy to direct them to, you know, different organizations. So.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. It's been a very, very enlightening interview. We could go on for like another hour or two, but
definitely,
you know, this is the kind of information that I think we need to pass on to someone, and they can pass it on to someone, because I think you're only as strong as, you know, what you know and what you, or taking what you know and applying it to your life.
Right.
You know, and I think that ties into the faith that you have.
Yes.
You know, and even before today, just our back and forth over the last month or so, you know, I could tell that you're a woman who is here today to tell your story because of your faith.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How important would you say that your faith is to you today, and just beyond you having lupus, but your whole life journey?
Absolutely. I've grown up in church all my life, but much more than that, I have my own personal relationship with God, and you know, praying and fasting is important, and it's definitely gotten me through my worst days with lupus. And so I'm thankful for that spiritual foundation that I have. I'm thankful that I have a huge family of believers who are always praying for me, and a community of supporters who do the same.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kawanna, for sharing your story and taking time for my little bitty platform, which is growing by the day. Seattle Connected, new episodes every Friday at 6 p.m. Yes. But thank you so much for sharing your story. And please, if you don't mind letting people know where they can receive more information, or if they want to connect with you, just, hey.
Yes, absolutely. I can be reached on Facebook, Kawanna Perine, and the same as Instagram. And two organizations, Lupus Foundation of America, they have a Pacific Northwest chapter here. They can be reached at lupus.org. And then the Lupus Research Alliance can be reached at lupusresearch.org.
And lastly, would you like to give any shout outs to anybody?
Shout out to my family.
Okay.
My daughter's here with me in the studio.
Yeah, shout out to Jasmine.
To Jazz. And my family, Perine, Hayes, Manaways, and my Tabernacle family. Love you all. Seattle, Tacoma, Mississippi, everybody.
Everybody, everywhere.
Everywhere.
That's right. Thank you so much, Kawanna. And if there's any way we can assist you, please let me know.
Absolutely.
Because it's such a good cause. And I think it's amazing that we have someone like you who's, had that journey of dealing with something like lupus, figuring it out, not giving up.
Right.
And also helping out others and connecting with others and spreading the word. So I salute you for that. And
thank you.
If there's anything I can do, just let me know.
Okay.
But I thank you. And I thank you guys for tuning in always. And like I always say, it's important to take care of others, but please make sure you take time to take care of yourself. Until next time, stay connected. Peace.